Let us talk now about asking your way to success. Remember, the most important single word for success in every part of life, including sales, is the word ask. Asking for what you want in a positive and courteous way will open more doors for you and get you more of the things you want than any other behavior you can imagine. The very best and highest paid salespeople in every field share certain qualities and characteristics that are the same. They always appear to be low-keyed, easygoing, relaxed, warm, friendly, and very interested in the thoughts and feelings and opinions of other people. I have worked, by the way, with some of the highest paid salespeople in the world in special meetings where they get together in luxury resorts. And I've spent many hours with people who make hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars a year. And I found that every single one of these people are very nice people. They're the kind of people that you like so much that you would like to buy their product or service before you even know what it is. They are very likable people in everything they do. And they learn that the great secret in selling, as well as in all human relationships, is to ask questions and listen carefully to the answers. The more they listen, the more they learn about how they can structure their product or service offerings to help customers achieve their goals or satisfy their needs. In this session, you're going to learn some of the most important discoveries in human relations and one of the finest of all interpersonal skills in human communications. Now, what do we know about asking your way to success? First of all, number one is questions are the keys to sales success and to success with people. All the best communicators are good people at asking questions. All the worst communicators are people who talk too much. And why is this? Well, the answer is that you and other people talk at a rate of maybe 100 to 150 words per minute. But people can listen at a rate of 600 words per minute. What that means is that when you're talking, the other person has 3/4 of their time available to think about other things. And that's why when you're talking, a person's mind easily gets distracted. But not when you ask questions. Questions arrest and hold the complete attention of the individual until he or she has answered. You see, we are structured from childhood to answer when someone asks us a question. And when we are answering a question, we cannot think of anything else except the answer. And when you are asking someone a question, you have complete control of the conversation. So asking, rather than talking, is the key to being a powerful communicator. Now, the more questions you ask, the less nervous you are. You see, if you're in a sales situation and you're under stress or a little bit tense, which is normal, and you're talking all the time, you can become more and more stressed out. You can become more nervous. However, the more you ask questions and listen to the answers, the more calm and relaxed you become, the more positive the customer becomes, the more positive you become, and the more effective you become in the sales conversation. So you can get over your nervousness with any other person by, instead of talking to them, just ask them questions and listen. Now, the top 10% of salespeople in all industries are highly skilled at asking careful, well thought out questions. In fact, some of the best sales training programs teach you questions to ask. And you can prepare these questions yourself. Top salespeople are those who prepare and think through each question in advance. They think, if I ask this question, what kind of an answer am I likely to get? And then if I got this kind of an answer, what would be my follow-up question? Top salespeople think on paper, and they develop penetrating questions to hold the attention of the prospect. Sometimes a very powerful question can transform a prospect. Let me give you an example. Ben Feltman was the greatest salesperson in the world, according to the Guinness Book of Records. He was a top insurance salesperson, and he would sell to business owners. And when he spoke to a business owner, the business owner would say, well, I'm not interested, I have enough insurance, I'm not going to bet against myself. I don't need it. And he would say, fine, thank you very much. But may I ask you just one question before I go? And the business owner would say, sure. And he'd say, my question is this, will your widow be able to dress as well as your wife? This would always shock a business owner, because business owners are usually very concerned about their spouses. A male business owner is very concerned about the well-being of his wife and children. He said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, if you are not properly insured, and we don't know that right now, within 2 years and 7 months after your death, should it happen, your wife will have no more money, and she'll never be able to dress as well again as she can dress today. How do you mean? Well, let me take a couple of minutes and ask you some questions and show you what I'm talking about. He became the greatest salesman in the world because of those questions that he asked that grabbed the customer's attention and caused them to be very interested in what he was selling. And you can do the same thing. Questions grab the attention of the prospect and open them up to more information. Now, there's 2 essential rules for success in selling and in interpersonal communications. Rule number 1 is that telling is not selling. Never say it if you can put it in the form of a question. Instead of saying, my product costs this much, you can say, did you know that in comparison with other products in the market, my product only costs this much? By asking it as a question, it's a completely different form of communication, and it causes people to lean forward and listen. Now, the second rule about questioning is the person who asks questions has control. The more questions you ask, the more you control the sales conversation. If you follow up one question after another, you have total control of the conversation from beginning to end. Now, there are 4 basic types of questions that you need to learn to be an effective communicator and a top salesperson. The first type of question is called an open-ended question. These are questions that start with the words what and when and who and where and how and why. An open-ended question cannot be answered with a yes or a no. For example, what are you doing now in this area? The customer can't say yes or no. They have to give you information to answer an open-ended question. Now, a second type of question is called a closed-ended question. Closed-ended question starts with verbs, and they require a specific answer, yes or no. They start with words like is, are, can, do, and will. These questions must be answered by a yes or no to be complete. For example, you would ask, will you be making a decision in the next 2 weeks? That can only be answered by a yes or a no. So we ask open-ended questions to open up the sales conversation, and we ask closed-ended questions to bring the conversation to a close and to get an answer, if not to close the sale. Another type of question you can use is called a negative answer question. If a customer says no, it means yes. It means that he or she is interested in your offer. For example, you could say, are you happy with your existing situation or your existing product? If the customer says no, it means yes, they're interested in what you're selling. Another question you can ask is called a hypothetical question. A question such as, what if? What if you could accomplish this? Or what if you could do that at a lower price? When you ask these questions, they're used to suggest possible courses of action or to cause the customer to imagine a different circumstances. You can use a what-if question to deal with objections. For example, the customer says, well, your product or service doesn't have this or doesn't have that. You say, well, what if we could supply something that took care of that for you? Or what if we could modify our product so it accomplished that goal for you? What-if questions cause the customer to say, oh yeah, if you could do that, then I'd be interested. Now, there are 6 times for you to ask questions in the sales conversation. The first time is to get appointments, where you phone or call to request a face-to-face meeting with a prospect. This is often the most important thing that you do, is to get the first meeting in the first place. Now, a second time to ask questions is to build rapport and a friendly relationship of trust at the beginning of the sales conversation. How are you? How is everything going? How is your life today? How's your business? Yes, how do you feel about today's economy? Friendly questions that start to build likability. Another reason to ask questions is to get information about the customer's situation and his or her problem. It's to ask them to find out what they're doing now and how it's working and what problems and needs they have that your product or service can satisfy. Another reason for asking questions is to present information in the form of questions. Remember, telling is not selling. So you can ask a question. Did you know that now you can accomplish this goal at a lower price than ever before? Did you know that our product will now offer this particular feature or benefit which was not available? In other words, asking the question rather than telling is much more powerful. Another way to use questions is to handle objections or concerns or problems that the customer might bring up. For example, the customer says, your price is too high. You can say, well, how do you mean exactly? Or we don't need that right now. Or what would have to happen in your business for you to want to use our product or service? So you always use questions to respond to concerns or objections rather than giving answers. You use questions to ask for the order. You use questions to close the sale. And this is one of the most important parts of all, and you'll learn about it later in this program. Now, top salespeople are invariably well prepared. We say that preparation is the mark of the professional. They have excellent questions for every sales situation. They think out their questions on paper. They don't go into a sales situation and dream up questions. They've usually written them down carefully in advance so that they are prepared. Imagine a courtroom lawyer who is questioning someone on the stand. The courtroom lawyer is always prepared. They always have their questions written, and they never ask a question that they don't know the answer to before they ask. So the key is for you to ask questions that follow a definite sequence. Ask questions that move from the general to the specific. And never ask a question that you have not thought through and prepared in advance. Always be ready. Preparation is the mark of the professional. Now, there are 4 ways to ask any question in a sales conversation. First, ask politely. Always treat the customer with courtesy and respect. A very good way to ask a question, at least initially, is to ask, "May I ask you a question?" You see, when you use "may I ask," the person will always say yes. And when they say yes, they've also said that they will also answer the question. So it's very courteous. Ask positively. Always be pleasant and cheerful in a sales situation. Say, I just thought of a question. Very positive. And ask the question, even though you had thought of the question a long time ago. Ask confidently. Speak clearly and boldly as though you are entitled to the answer. May I ask, what are you doing now in this area? Or who are you using to provide this product or service? And how do you like their service? I mean, are you happy with them on a scale of 1 to 10? Don't be afraid to ask really confidently for the answer. And then ask expectantly, as though you fully expect to get an open and honest answer from the customer. Well, may I ask you a question? And ask the question and wait. Attentively, pause, wait for the answer, and lean forward as though you fully expect a complete answer. You see, customers, human beings, are designed to respond to your expectations. If you expect to get an answer, they will usually give you an answer. The future in business and personal life belongs to the askers. It belongs to people who ask for what they want. So ask for appointments with qualified prospects. I will tell you this, your success, your income, your future will be largely determined by how often you ask for appointments with qualified prospects. If you ask 10 or 20 or 30 times a day, you're going to be very successful. If you ask 1 or 2 times a day, you're not going to accomplish very much. Ask for the information you need to make an effective sales presentation. ask the person almost like you were a doctor and you need a lot of information from the customer before you can present a diagnosis or a prescription. Ask the customer for questions and concerns that might be holding him back from making a buying decision. May I ask what might be causing you to hesitate about going ahead with our offer right now? Or you can say, almost everyone has at least one or two reasons for not buying a product. May I ask, what would yours be? And often they'll say, well, the one thing that's holding me back is this. And if you can answer it, you can often get the sale. And finally, ask the customer to make a decision. Ask the customer to buy your product or service or to take the conversation to the next level and arrange the next meeting. Never leave a conversation or a meeting with a customer without either asking for the sale or asking for the next meeting where you move the sale forward. Now, the fear of rejection is one of the worst fears experienced by virtually everyone, as we've mentioned before. The fear of rejection holds people back from asking the questions they need to ask if they want to make the sale. People are conditioned to respond with answers when you ask questions of any kind. So as long as you ask positively and confidently and expectantly, prospects will tell you everything you need to know to structure your presentation so that you can sell your product. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to hear the word no over and over on the way to sales success. Now, here are some questions you can ask and answer to apply these ideas to your sales activities. Number one, list 3 ways that questions help you in the sales conversation. Number 2, what are the 3 best questions that you have discovered to hold the customer's attention and to reveal essential information? Number 3, telling is not selling. What are the 3 best types of questions that you can ask to guide and control the sales conversation, as we've explained in this lesson? Number 4, give 3 examples of open-ended questions that you can use to get more information in a sales conversation. Number 5, give 3 examples of a negative answer question that you can use in your sales interview. A negative answer question being a question that if they say no, it means yes. Question number 6, what are the 3 best times to ask questions with a prospect or a customer? Number 7, what are the 3 ways to ask questions so that they are always well received by the customer? And finally, what 1 action are you going to take immediately as a result of what you have learned in this session?